You owe us grandchildren. My in-laws tried to sue me for not getting pregnant. The lawsuit arrived on a Tuesday, delivered by a process server who looked embarrassed to be standing at my door. I signed for it while still in my scrubs, having just returned from a 12-hour shift at the hospital where I worked as a surgical nurse. Gentry versus Gentry. The envelope read. My in-laws were suing me. I opened it at my kitchen table, coffee growing cold as I read the surreal words. Breach of marital contract. Failure to provide grandchildren. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Damages sought, $500,000. My hands weren't shaking. After years of handling surgical instruments during life-or-death procedures, very little made my hands shake anymore. But I did feel something cold settle in my chest, like ice forming over a lake. Richard and Carol Gentry were actually suing me for not getting pregnant. My phone rang. My husband, David. Lauren, my parents' lawyer, just called me. This is insane. I had no idea they were. Did you know they were planning this? No. God, no. I'm driving home now. Don't do anything until I get there. Don't do anything. For 3 years, that had been David's approach to his parents. Don't respond to his mother's pointed comments about empty nurseries. Don't react when his father talked about carrying on the family name. Don't do anything, and maybe they'd stop. They hadn't stopped. They'd hired a lawyer. I read through the complaint while waiting for David. According to the filing, I had entered into marriage with the understanding that children were expected. I had deliberately and maliciously refused to fulfill this basic marital obligation, causing his parents severe emotional distress and financial damages related to the absence of grandchildren to carry on the family business. The family business was a chain of furniture stores. Successful, yes, but hardly the dynasty they imagined it to be. David arrived looking haggard, his tie loosened, his face pale. I've already called 3 lawyers, he said, kissing my forehead. This is harassment. We'll countersue. David. I set down the papers. There's something we need to discuss. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. I went to Dr. Morrison last month. He froze. The fertility specialist, but I thought we agreed to wait. I went for myself, to get answers about why we haven't conceived. I pulled out my phone, opening the medical portal app. The results came back last week. I showed him the screen. The diagnosis clear in black and white. Premature ovarian failure. Egg reserve critically diminished. Recommendation: consider egg donation or adoption if pregnancy desired. David sank into the chair across from me. Why didn't you tell me? I was processing, trying to figure out how to tell you, how to tell your parents. My parents don't need to know our medical information. They are suing me for not providing grandchildren, David. I think we're past privacy boundaries. He rubbed his face. This is a nightmare. There's more. I pulled up another document. I had Dr. Morrison run a full fertility panel. Both of us. David's head snapped up. What? Your results came back too. You submitted a sample 2 years ago, remember? When we first started trying. The clinic still had it on file. I turned the phone toward him. Sperm count, negligible. Motility, poor. Morphology, significantly abnormal. Recommendation: IVF with ICSI required for any chance of biological children. The color drained from his face entirely. That's not possible. The doctor said everything was normal. Which doctor? Dr. Reeves. My parents' doctor. He's been our family physician for 30 years. I pulled up a third document. I had the clinic request your records from Dr. Reeves. David, he never ran a fertility test. This is just a standard physical panel. No sperm analysis at all. David stared at the papers like they might change if he looked hard enough. But he told me, he told my parents. He told them what they wanted to hear. The silence stretched between us, heavy with implications. His parents' doctor, their country club friend, had lied. Either to spare David's feelings, or more likely, to avoid telling the Gentrys that their precious son might be the reason for the empty nursery. We need to tell them, David said finally. Tell them what? That we're both struggling with infertility. That their family doctor has been lying to them. That their lawsuit is even more cruel than they realized. All of it. I shook my head. They'll just blame me more. Say I damaged you somehow, or that I'm lying about my own results. Then we'll show them the medical records. David, they are suing me. This isn't about logic or medical facts. This is about control. My phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address, but the subject line made my blood freeze. We know about the clinic visit. I opened it. Photos of me entering the fertility clinic, taken from across the street. And a message. Trying to create fake medical records won't help your case. We have evidence of your deception. They had me followed, I said numbly. Your parents had a private investigator follow me. David grabbed the phone. This is stalking. This is beyond. Another email arrived. This one with a photo of David from 3 weeks ago, entering a building I recognized. Not his office. Not a client's site. David, I said slowly, where were you on Thursday the 15th at 2 p.m.? His face flushed. Lauren, it's not what it looks like. The Meridian Hotel. I can explain. Were you having an affair? No. He pulled out his own phone, scrolling frantically. Look, here. Emails with Dr. Jennifer Chen. She's a therapist. I've been seeing her about the pressure from my parents. About feeling like a failure for not giving them grandchildren. I read the emails. Appointment confirmations. Her office was in the Meridian Hotel's medical plaza. You've been in therapy. For 3 months. Since Mom started leaving baby clothes on our doorstep. He laughed bitterly. I didn't tell you because I was embarrassed. A grown man needing therapy because his mommy wants grandkids. David. I reached for his hand. The thing is, he continued, Dr. Chen helped me realize something. My parents don't want grandchildren. They want possessions. Living dolls to dress up and parade around. Extensions of their egos. Another buzz. This time, a text from Carol herself. We're willing to drop the lawsuit if you agree to IVF immediately. We'll pay for everything. You just need to comply. Comply. Like I was a malfunctioning employee. I have a better idea, I said, pulling out my laptop. What are you doing? Scheduling a meeting with Patricia Winters. The lawyer who handled that high-profile divorce last year. The lawyer who specializes in reproductive coercion cases. David blinked. That's a thing. It's very much a thing. And what your parents are doing, suing me for not getting pregnant, falls squarely under that umbrella. The meeting with Patricia was scheduled for the next morning. She was everything I'd hoped, sharp, direct, and utterly unsympathetic to the Gentry's position. This lawsuit is harassment, she said, reviewing the documents. But more importantly, it's evidence. They've put in writing that they believe they're entitled to control your reproductive choices. Can we countersue? We can do better than that. She pulled out a legal pad. First, we file for a restraining order based on the stalking. Second, we countersue for emotional distress, real emotional distress, not their imagined version. Third, we contact the medical board about Dr. Reeves falsifying medical information. And fourth, David asked. Fourth, we go public. Very public. The story broke 2 days later. Couple sued by in-laws for not producing grandchildren made national news. The Gentrys, who valued their social standing above all else, became the subject of mockery on social media. Memes of their furniture stores with captions like "Where entitled grandparents shop" went viral. But the real blow came during the deposition. Patricia had requested all communications between the Gentrys and their lawyer. What we found was a goldmine of entitlement. Emails discussing how they'd invested in David's upbringing and deserved a return in the form of grandchildren. Messages about how I was defective and should be replaced if I couldn't produce heirs. And then, the smoking gun, an email from Richard to Carol, dated 6 months before the lawsuit, that read, "If she hasn't produced a grandchild by their 3rd anniversary, we'll force the issue. Either she complies, or David gets a new wife." I've already discussed options with Catherine's parents. Catherine, David's college girlfriend, whose parents were also in the furniture business. They were planning to replace me, I said, reading it aloud in the lawyer's office. Like I'm a broken appliance. David's face was stone. I'm done with them. The restraining order was granted immediately. The stalking, combined with the threatening emails, made it an easy decision for the judge. The Gentrys were ordered to stay 500 feet away from us and cease all contact. Their lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning they could never file it again. But Patricia wasn't done. Your medical records show you've both been experiencing significant stress-related health issues, she said. That's damages. Real, documentable damages. Our countersuit sought $2 million. The Gentry's lawyer tried to negotiate. They'd drop everything if we just agreed to try for grandchildren. When that failed, they offered money, $50,000 to undergo IVF. They still don't get it, David said after rejecting their latest offer. They think everyone has a price. The case was settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, enough for us to start fresh somewhere else. But the real victory came in what we gained: freedom. David cut all contact with his parents. We moved to a different state, where nobody knew about the grandchildren lawsuit. We started therapy together, working through the trauma of being treated like breeding stock. And 6 months later, we started the adoption process. Not because anyone demanded it, not to carry on someone else's legacy, but because we wanted to be parents on our own terms, in our own time. The adoption agency required reference letters. Patricia Winters wrote one that began, "I have never met two people more committed to protecting and nurturing a child's right to be seen as a full person rather than an accessory to someone else's ego." 2 years later, we brought home siblings, a 4-year-old girl and her 2-year-old brother, removed from their biological home due to neglect. They needed parents who understood that children weren't possessions, weren't investments, weren't mini-me projects. They needed parents who would fight for their autonomy. The Gentrys found out through mutual friends. They tried to establish grandparents' rights, but their previous lawsuit had destroyed any chance of that. No court would give visitation rights to people who had sued their daughter-in-law for not breeding on command. Last I heard, they'd sold the furniture business. Without their imagined dynasty to inherit it, it had lost its meaning for them. David and I still have the lawsuit framed in our home office. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that love isn't about meeting someone else's expectations. It's not about producing outcomes or fulfilling contracts. It's about choosing to build something together, despite the people who would tear it down for not meeting their specifications. Our children, adopted, chosen, loved, will never doubt that they exist for their own sake, not to fulfill someone else's dream of genetic legacy. That's the only inheritance that matters.